Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. President Trump accuses China of meddling in the upcoming U.S. election. He says the communist country doesn't want him to succeed because he's tough on them. This revelation comes in the midst of today's high-level meetings at the United Nations. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee joins us from the UN headquarters in New York City. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. We expected President Trump to blast Iran for spreading terrorism throughout the Middle East and the world, but he did single them out. However, he also made headlines with an allegation against China.
Regrettably, we found that China has been attempting to interfere in our upcoming 2018 election.
President Trump tells world leaders gathered at the UN Security Council China is targeting his administration.
They do not want me or us to win because I am the first president ever to challenge China on trade.
U.S. intelligence officials say they're also trying to prevent election meddling from Russia, North Korea, and Iran. The president describes Iran as the world's leading sponsor of terror, fueling conflict around the region and far beyond.
The murderous regime and its supporters will face significant consequences if they do not change their behavior.
National Security Advisor John Bolton calls the Obama-era nuclear deal with Iran the worst diplomatic debacle in American history. President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the deal in May and reimposed sanctions against the Middle Eastern country. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani spoke at the UN yesterday. He's critical of the U.S., but says he's still open to dialogue. Protesters say the Iranian government does not represent its people. They gathered outside the UN on Monday to call for regime change. Bernard Henry Levy also blasts Iran for trying to destabilize places like Iraq. The French philosopher and political activist tells me he's seen the problems firsthand.
They prosecute the Kurds, the Christians, and the Sunnis who resist their influence. They are really a bad force.
Levy says we need to do more to protect religious minorities from Iran's interference. I also talked to Norman Rule, a senior advisor with an organization called United Against Nuclear Iran. He says Iran tries to neutralize any political party that's opposed to its ideology. Lauren?
Wyatt, President Trump's accusation against China came as a bit of a surprise. Did he offer any evidence of election meddling?
Well, President Trump says there is plenty of evidence, but he didn't go into any specifics. Now, China's foreign minister denies the allegations. He says his country does not interfere in any other country's domestic affairs. Now, cyber experts at this point have yet to find any proof, they say, of Chinese meddling in U.S. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reporting from the United Nations in New York City.